Hello and welcome to Trust Your Glitter podcast. This is Christy Belich and I am here to discuss the astrology of the week of December 10th through 17th. This week we have a new moon in the sign of Sagittarius. Not a lot of astrological transits or even aspects this week, but it is I was thinking this morning about what this represents. Sometimes we need a lot of things moving around in the sky, but when I'm looking at this week, I'm looking at elements. So there's a lot of element of fire in the sky this week, and it kind of makes me want to watch the solar activity and see if there's a lot of solar flares, because there is a lot of just vibrant energy, and I really like the energy of this week. So with this upcoming Sagittarius New Moon, so that is on the 12th, that'll be at 6:32 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I really love this new moon. I really love the symbolism of this new moon. And I also want to point out that directly the day after, so we've been in Mercury's shadow since the 25th of November. And Mercury's shadow means that is the degree or the point in which when Mercury goes retrograde, that is the degree that Mercury goes back to. So just note that on the 25th, we've actually seen very close energy to this new moon. 22 degrees Sagittarius is the shadow point. That is that point. If you kind of look at like a clock, if you're setting a clock backwards, that's where the hands will go back to. And so on the 13th of December, so the day after the new moon, Mercury is stationing to go retrograde at 8 degrees Capricorn. So think of our hands on a clock are at 8 degrees Capricorn, and we're taking that clock hand all the way back to 22 degrees Sagittarius. Now, this all ties together because the new moon is at 20 degrees Sagittarius, and the message, because Mercury is the messenger. So the messenger has already sent something out, brought something in, news, communications, things of this nature. And in this case, Mercury is giving us this lesson that's going to take us through January of 2024. Mercury will not station direct until the day of the new year, and I'll be talking more about the transits at the end of the year because there's just a lot of synchronicities still left in this year. And I do think it's very interesting that in 2023 we did get a bulk of our transits, a bulk of this heavy energy in the spring and the fall. So I do think that this year really did take us through the gamut of emotions and really did kind of take us up and down through the trenches of life, down into the underworld, the peaks and valleys. And I think that right now what we're seeing is we're in the home stretch, and I'm going to continue to use like horse metaphors for this season or equine related metaphors, because this is what I would call the gambler's new moon. And I just want to note that our Mercury lesson that ties into this new moon is taking us out to the 20th of January 2024, when Mercury finally leaves that shadow or leaves the realm of the retrograde, clears 8 degrees Capricorn. So this new moon and this Mercury retrograde are kind of weaved together in a very beautiful way. And Sagittarius is a very optimistic sign, but Sagittarius is also, as I said, the gambler's sign. So with this new moon, I also want to shout out Eliza Einhorn, because I was on her live stream and she was singing The Gambler, the song by Kenny Loggins. I think it's by Kenny Loggins. Hold on, before I go in the Gambler lyrics. Kenny Rogers. Okay. So I'm going to keep that. But I want to share the lyrics, and I want to shout out Eliza Einhorn just because this is Vegas odds. This is like one of those things where we're in a lot of energy. We're in this expansive energy. Jupiter is an expansive planet. Sagittarius, that's Sagittarius's home. Also Pisces, co-home, although Pisces has two homes, Neptune and Jupiter. So I just want to share some of the lyrics to Kenny Rogers' The Gambler. And there's so many versions of this song. But I want to, this is part of the lyrics. Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep. Because every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser. And the best that you can hope for is to die in your sleep. And when he'd finished speaking, he turned back toward the window, crushed out a cigarette, and faded off to sleep. And somewhere in the darkness, the gambler, he broke even. But in his final words, I found an ace that I could keep. So then, the refrain, you've got to know when to hold 'em, know when to fold 'em, know when to walk away, and know when to run. You never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be time enough for counting when the deal ends done. Okay. So the lyrics can be a little bit dark, but I kind of view this as, the beauty of the fact that, when you're going for your dream, when you're going for life, when you're going for your goals, some of the things that we all do are kind of jumping into the unknown. And for tarot cards, I am doing tarot cards for pets. Really love this segment, and today I am doing a card reading for B. That is for B, and this person has sent me a list of their cats. So I have a reading, and I can say their names on this podcast. I have Mustafa, Holiko, and John, or Holiko, John, and Mustafa. So when I get a couple of different pets in a row, I might kind of channel all three at the same time, so their messages might kind of scatter or kind of mesh into one another. But right now I have my tarot cards in front of me, and before I hit record, one was like, let's pull this out immediately. So the immediate card that wanted to come out for these cats is the Ace of Cups, which is ultimate love, ultimate compassion. No matter what, this is exactly how time and space was meant to be when all of these cats were in your life. So as I do this reading, I just want to let you know, like, everything was meant to happen the way it did. And Ace of Cups is the highest form of love, highest form of compassion. So let's go with Holiko, and I apologize if I'm saying the name wrong. I'm just going to pull 2 cards per cat. And by the way, these are shuffled, so it's interesting. Then we go with John. John's kind of, the way John's cards are is he really wants to go deep into the card deck. So I'm just kind of taking my time. He really wants a specific 2. And then Mustafa. Okay, and he just wants 1 for now, so we'll go with 2 in a second, during his reading. But Holiko got the 8 of Swords and the Lovers, and before I did this reading, I actually recorded my main podcast. So it's interesting because the 8 of Swords and the Lovers are out on my full podcast regarding the new moon and Mercury retrograde. So a lot of his messages, I wonder, are transpiring now, and it feels like he's coming around. So it feels like maybe he is helping you through Sagittarius season, or he was a Sagittarius, or he had some Sagittarian planets in him where he really wanted to be outdoors, be in the greater world, really explore, really expand. I see him under a dumpster, a green, like, recycling dumpster, like one of those really, really, really big dumpsters, and he just wanted to see everything that was going on. I also see him, he's just showing me a lot of outdoors. He's showing me a lot of, like, connection to wanting to roam in tall grass, wanting to really, he said he wanted to mouse in tall grass, but he's showing me the color green, really like an earthy green, army green dumpster. And there's numbers painted on the side. It is in like white spray paint, or like factory spray paint, so on the side. And the numbers I'm seeing are 1713, 17 or 11713. So he's just, and he's giving me like a yes. This is where I'm getting an overlap. And Mustafa's coming through. And the card I picked for him is the 8 of Pentacles. And he's looking over his right shoulder. So he's in a seated position. And he's looking over his right shoulder. And he's just letting me know that his shoulder's okay. Like, he's okay. His shoulder's okay. He's safe. He's happy. The Ace of Cups is what he's trying to, like, point towards it. Love, love, love. It's all love. Like, he's surrounding your energy with love. And he's saying total freedom, total freedom. And then he will come back to you. So I feel like he's actually coming back through. And with his 8 of Pentacles, he's saying it's not about the card itself, but it's about the feeling. And so the feeling of the 8 of Pentacles is like grounding. Really, really honing in. Really, really being in a place that really grounds you is when he will come towards you again. He said to get that nailed down, it'll take about 8 months. So just know that in about 8 months, you might receive an animal back into your life, or an animal might come through again. And John, like, his cards were the hardest to get to. And his energy is really deep in my stomach. So the cards for him are the 4 of Wands and the 2 of Cups. And these are regarding a relationship. There's a relationship connection to this cat. He's very quiet. Like, when I'm talking to his energy, I'm seeing, so this is not an orange cat. This seems like another cat that was connected to him, or that there was an orange cat. And the way I see this cat's fur is it doesn't have like the stripes. It's like completely, like, if I look at like a Russian blue and it's like this very like faded orange, that's the way I see, or faded gray, I see how the orange like is one tone. But John is like very specific and like pointing to this one other cat. And he's saying like, this has been a connection all my life. This was like my divine twin, my divine flame, my divine love. So he feels really calm and in a strong space. And I just keep seeing 4, like the number 4 around him. So if you see the number 4, this is this cat saying hello. Not the same as Helico, who really wants to indicate like an address or a place, or an actual building number, or even if it was like the dumpster number, like 1713. Like, John is more like saying when you look at 4 on the clock, when you see 4, he's also showing me a lot of like pink rose quartz. And he's coming through my left hand with that. So I think that he's like letting you know he wants to help you to find like a partnership or a relationship. But he's very much in the energy of rose quartz. And there's like a very Pisces energy around this cat. And I also feel Leo. So it almost feels like he's like trying to point you towards like the energy of like Pisces season. And then also possibly a Leo human. Like this is like him saying like a human being with the sign of Leo. And he's trying to give like an actual reading, like a future. So I would just say he's helping you. And I feel like it's interesting because Mustafa is just like, his energy is very scattered. Haliko's energy is very like, wants to be outdoors, very frisky, very rambunctious, but at the same time wants to play. And then John's energy feels extremely like methodical to me. Like there's a method to what this cat does or has done. And I think that he actually is a strong spirit guide for relationships. Now he's saying he was a Libra. So Libra is balancing the scales. He was here to balance your scales. Sometimes in our lives, and a lot of times in our lives, when we bring in an animal, it's in a time when we're in a healing process of short-term and long-term. And then he says, I think it was your Libran lesson. Like, this is what the scales feel like. However, he's showing you that the number 4, which is a very grounding number, is here to, he says, anchor, hold, fix, ground, heal. He said, okay, so he's like, when you see 4, just know this is a moment this is John, am asking you to focus on your healing. So John is number 4. Mustafa. So Mustafa says, no, I want to give her lessons later. And I would say with him, he's coming back. Like, ultimately, he's coming back towards you. So he's a reincarnation lesson if you believe in reincarnation. Everybody else, like when I look at the span of every single card, it's all about freeing yourself from your past. And then the Ace of Cups is saying really, really focus on the highest form of love. With the Ace of Cups, I do also feel the ocean for this particular reading. And so it might be that you can connect to Mustafa by the ocean or get that spiritual download when you are meditating by a body of water. But I do feel like in a watery season, which is Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio, and most likely I feel this more towards Cancer season, you're going to have another familiar enter your life, which is like an animal helper. Also focus on the birds and put your wishes out into the sky with the birds is what I'm hearing as well. But he's definitely like the most present and the most like, he's not gone. He's just extremely like, sometimes when the work happens, our familiars are on the spirit realm and they bring it back into the physical. I'm not an expert on life. I've just seen it happen. But he definitely feels the most like still here. John is definitely on the other side as a spirit guide. And then Haliko feels like he finds you through the nature spirit. So like the wind when it blows, or some weird thing if like a piece of paper blows away, the trickster vibes. So he might bring those trickster vibes around as Mercury goes retrograde. And so with that, I hope you enjoyed tarot cards for pets. If anybody wants a tarot card for pets reading, you can find me on social media, Trust Your Glitter, Christy Belich, all social media. Also, I'm doing 10% off all my readings through the rest of 2023, and you can book with me at Linktree/TrustYourGlitter. That is Linktree/TrustYourGlitter. And now back to the podcast. when I look at Sagittarius, I generally say the Fool is a very Sagittarian card. But I would also say that the Wheel of Fortune is also a beautiful representation of the sign of Sagittarius. So with this, we're looking at how we've been surviving, where we've been surviving in survival mode, where we need to go into counting our blessings and looking at the optimism and looking at things from an angle of perspective. So when I think about this, I do think about Vegas odds, and I think about, the correlation of the gambler. But I also, this week is the National Finals Rodeo, which got delayed a day because of everything that happened at the University of Las Vegas, and, so many condolences, and it's just very interesting. I do think that, I don't think, but the whole planet is covered in meridian points. And for example, like Mount Shasta in California is a primal chakra, first chakra meridian point. And when I look at Sagittarius, we're looking at the meridian points on the globe. And Vegas is very Sagittarian. Vegas is Jupiterian, gambling. It's that energy. Same with like Atlantic City. It's like this Jupiter energy. Anywhere where there's a hub of casinos, and this is that energy of turning the wheel of karma. And it's very different from Saturnic energy. Now, I also look at the fact that Saturn is in Pisces, which, Pisces' second home is Jupiter. So if we look at astrology as this like mosaic of energy, and that energy is constantly moving, the Wheel of Fortune, the Wheel of Karma is constantly turning. This full moon is asking us to be quite smart on how we enter the card game on the table. And, yes, Sagittarius gets a rep of being like this loud, gregarious storyteller, which very much is linked to the sign. But Sagittarius is also the sign of faith. It takes great faith to be able to gamble. And I'm not saying, obviously there's people that have gambling debts, the wheel is turning backwards. But if we think about that in terms of Mercury retrograde, and we think of that in the terms of the Wheel of Karma or the Wheel of Fortune, this is the wheel working forward and backward at the same time. So like it could be quite literal, check your car, make sure your car has everything it needs. And, if there's a story related to our modes of transportation, and, Sagittarius does roll horses. So I'm looking at this from a perspective of also like, make sure just all the nuts and bolts are taken care of, especially also related to communication. Like things can get missed, or the details can get lost, especially this week. There's a lot of energy flying around, but in the energy of faith, there's a beauty to trusting, to blind trust. And I do think of the National Finals Rodeo, which I have been watching barrel racing just for 3 years, and it just kind of fell into my lap. In 2020, I was in the desert in a little home, and I was packing it up. It was getting sold, and I was obsessed with the land that I was on and appreciative. And it just so happened that my algorithm on my YouTube started playing barrel racing videos, and I just started watching the sport. And this week, I think it's very symbolic. And I know, there's not many fans of astrology who would also be fans of barrel racing. But as I watched the metaphor of, how this rodeo is going down in Las Vegas. I think it's on its like 63rd, 65th year. It's like the Super Bowl of rodeos, and it's not just barrel racing that's happening in Vegas. They're doing like, bull riding and team roping. There's all different types of genres within the rodeo world. But I'm paying attention to the barrel racing aspect of it, and just how it kind of correlates into this new moon, and how, this is a 10-day rodeo, and how they've been delayed a day, and how, these horse people have handled the situation, and how they're literally gambling. They're running into an arena at top speeds and gambling, and basically to even be able to make it to this rodeo, they've been gambling all, years and years and years of training. And I think about that when I'm looking at these transits, and I'm like, it takes a lot of training to look like you're just winging it. And sometimes you are just winging it, but it takes a lot of blind faith training to jump in, go at top speeds, and go around some barrels and try to make as much money as you possibly can on a horse. It takes a lot of courage and strength and faith. And I think that that's what sports are. And sports are, of course, gambling. And in this week is, where are we running into an arena at top speeds and just having faith, trying to fly by the seat of our pants, but at the same time, no one to hold, no one to fold, no one to run away. And these are the kinds of questions we're going to be presented with, not just this week, but through January. And it does take a lot of understanding our gut, understanding that little voice inside of us that's like, okay, I really have this fire spark, but I just don't know how I'm going to get to the finish line, And sometimes our ride to the finish line ain't pretty. Sometimes we lose a stirrup. Sometimes our hat falls off. Sometimes we look disheveled. Sometimes our horse trips on the ground. Sometimes the ground is not meant for us, and we have to find our way to a better ground. But the reality is, with the fire in our heart this week, and I think that that's what really, when I'm looking at this, and I think, solar flares, I think this fire energy from Sagittarius, the 11th, we have Mars in a beautiful creative aspect to Jupiter called a biquintile. Mercury in Capricorn is sextile Venus. I think that is also trusting creativity. Even with Mercury in Capricorn, which can be quite serious, our minds can be in a serious place, but I think we're being supported through passion. Then on the 12th, we have, Venus sesquiquadrate Neptune. It can be tension with creativity, but I think with Neptune going direct last week, which is the planet also of faith, music, creative passions, anything related to art, creativity. The 12th is a really beautiful day with this new moon. And I really think that it is about being our highest potential in these upcoming days. And then the day Mercury goes retrograde, the 13th, the sun is sesquiquadrate Jupiter, which means there is a tense aspect. However, I think optimism overrides it, because the sun is in a Jupiterian sign, and Jupiter, yes, is in Taurus, but I really think the 13th is going to be a day where it could be a little bit, and there can be a little bit of having blinders on towards like the obstacles. But I think that's a good thing, because, and also Mars is semi-square Pluto on the day Mercury goes retrograde, the 13th. So I do want to see, again, solar activity. Let's see what's up with the solar activity on the 13th through, I would even say the 17th. The 15th, we have the Sun in Sagittarius trine. So that's in a beautiful harmonious aspect with the North Node of Fate in Aries. The same exact day on the 15th, Mars is trine Chiron in Aries. Tons of fire in the sky on the 15th. Tons. And I mean, the 13th through the 15th is a really, really good day to just bring the light into your life and just say, let's allow the light in. Let's allow whatever comes in for the highest good to really serve my purpose. And I think a lot of people this week are going to be asking themselves, I am gambling on, this is a gamble, but what is actually serving my highest purpose? If it's a detriment, Mercury retrograde is going to really clear that up over the next month and a half. And then on the 16th, it's a day where confusion can happen. The Sun's square to Neptune in Pisces. What I like about this is Pisces has been direct and has made some clarifications. The Sun square Neptune takes a lot of work to filter. So, people might not have their filters on with what they're saying to you. B, you might observe this in others, meaning you're observing some truth. They're not fully giving you the real on it. And I don't think it's that somebody's lying outright, although there can be somebody in our life that is not telling the full truth. But this is where the vantage point on the 16th and with this new moon gives us direction. So, for example, in your career, and this is because Mercury retrograde is between Capricorn and Sagittarius, so Capricorn gives us more that serious, what is our life purpose, our job, our career. In your career, if there's people around you where you're I don't think they're giving me the full listing on the salary, I don't think they're giving me the full perspective of what's going on behind the scenes, your gut is going to be so on point with this, but it's trusting that what people are saying versus what is actually transpiring are two-ish. It's the ish perspective, right? You're getting a half perspective. And you've really got to determine this over time. And the cards that I pulled out before the reading are Temperance and the 10 of Cups and the 8 of Swords and the Lovers. And I think that this card reading applies to this particular aspect where it's you've just got to take your time with this. Again, the lyric to the song, no one to hold, no one to fold, no one to walk away, these sorts of things. But take your time, bide your time. You've got enough giving, you've got enough wiggle room here. Now, with all the fire, some people might be making ultimatum decisions and say, I'm out, here we go. But I would recommend, based on what I'm seeing, is to really just take your time. So yes, it could feel so urgent this week that the people who are not necessarily fire signs might be kind of having literally the fire lit under their ass. But I would also say, as somebody who lives a lot of the energy of this week, what I would recommend is somebody who has made a shit ton of mistakes in my life is learn from my mistakes of being a double fire sign and take your damn time. Know that this week is not every week, and know that we're also going to be entering Capricorn season extremely soon. So the energy is going to shift almost like a snap of the fingers. We're going to go from fire to earth. And so this week is instead of getting up and running away, write it out. Use your voice in a constructive way. It's a good week to do some sort of talk therapy. I know that comedians listen to this. This is a really good week to do comedy in any capacity. for astrologers and writers or creatives that listen to this, hit that record button, send it to your email if you're pissed off at somebody, but especially around the 16th. It's not a confrontation thing, but it is something where you're like, I really have to say this, but if I say this to them, be careful what you say to people. That's all I would heed caution. And then on the 17th, and I do Sunday to Sunday because I know just days and times overlap for people. The 17th, Venus is quincunx Chiron. And earlier, I want to say the 15th, we had trines to Chiron. This is where I want to just take note of this and see how this folds out into the spring of 2024. So I really want to see how this week kind of correlates over into next year. I want to see how things fully find their way into our lives as we really get in touch with our heart's passion. So I'm going to look at the broader view of this week as a homework assignment. We're getting data this week. We're getting a perspective of temperance, which is be patient, dear one. 10 of Cups is saying, this is a family and a community aspect. I did pull it in the reverse. So for those who are in family planning, that's what I'm feeling when I'm looking at this card. Just know that it is a matter of trust and time, and knowing that, this is I do feel like a conception, but look at this as creative conception. So it's, this could even be like real estate, trying to buy a property. The 8 of Swords is next to that, and with the Lovers, I want to see how this week takes us out into January, and then again we're going to have to go through March, April, and then how we find that this particular week in December of 2023 makes its way into our life again during Gemini season. So if you're planning this week, if you're like your hands are up in the air in any sort of frustration, just know that between now and Gemini season is the span of time that I'm looking for with this Wheel of Fortune shifting energies. So it's like things move forward, things move backward, things can be out of a complete surprise to us, but just know to be really patient with yourself and to trust the process. So I'm going to say thank you so much for listening to Trust Your Glitter. I hope you have an amazing week ahead, and take care.